Hey there, I'm Sergey Vinogradov, and today I'm going to show you how to save 30% of your web project's budget by just following the syntax rules. The main secret will be in the end of this video, so make sure you watch until the end. Let's go. In any project of any size, roughly 30% of the budget gets wasted onto either enforcing the coding style guides to make the code readable, or if you don't do that, the same amount of time goes onto reading the poorly formatted code, reading the code that doesn't adhere to the style guides. So if we're talking about a 1 year long project with a couple people working on it, this video that you're watching right now will help you save tens of thousands of dollars and months of development. So I will show you 3 ways you can enforce style guides in your project. I will be using Ruby because I'm more proficient with it. So as an example, I will show you 3 ways of solving 5 most common problems that I face in Ruby projects, okay? Those problems will be fixing quotes, fixing spaces inside the hashes and arrays, the order of definition of methods, and making new style hashes instead of old style hashes. If you want me to show you how to fix the initial spaces in the project, leave a comment under this video and I will happily share this experience with you as well. So, method 1, manually following style guides. This is style guides for the Ruby language. You can find them easily by just googling Ruby style guides URL and just going to this page, which will be the first result in Google. So this is a really long list of rules or standards that people agree to when they write code. So every time every professional writes code, he tries to follow these rules as much as he can. This is how I started when there were no automatic syntax checks, there were no tools to enforce it automatically. This is what I did when I started. So you can learn these things by heart and just try to follow them, which is hard, but it's useful. If you find it difficult to remember all those lines of rules, a good practice will be to just paste the main ones as comments into your file. For example, here is the Ruby class. Here I just manually pasted the order in which I want to define methods. I pasted which quotes I want to use, how I want to work with spaces, and which hashes I would like to use. This may seem like an unnecessary step, but really if you have many people working on your project and the project is fairly big, people start forgetting this. So when you have this in your class, people will constantly check if they are following the rules for writing the class and will fix it on the go. So really you can have 10-20 people in the project and they will all write the code that follows the style guides if you just enforce the rules by putting them in the top of each file. Method number 2, Rubocop. You can enforce style guides by installing something called Rubocop, which is a library to enforce style guides in your project. It's mostly automated, it sometimes needs a little configuration, but really it's fairly simple. You just have to install the library called Rubocop by adding it into a gem file if you're making a Ruby project, and you have to make a config file. Now this config file is an exact copy of Rubocop's own config file. So I went to the Rubocop GitHub and I just copied this file that they have in their own project, and it works fine. It has all the main standards of code that people would want to use. So I pasted it into my project, I maybe deleted a couple lines, and I was done with configuration. And let me show you how it works. So this is the Ruby file that has a couple methods inside it, and it breaks certain rules of style guides. For example, this method, double quotes test, is fine, it follows the rules. The second method breaks the rules of quoting. It should have single quotes, but it has double quotes. Method number 3 breaks the rule of spaces. If we read the style guides, we'll see that there should be no spaces right after the brace and right before the closing brace. So this method breaks that rule. Method 4 breaks the rule because it uses the old style hashes instead of new style hashes. And the rest of the file breaks the rule of defining the class methods after the private instance methods, right? So this self statement is a definition of a class method, and it should be in the top of the file according to the style guides, but it's not. So it's breaking that rule. We want to make sure that Rubocop tells us about these old problems. So in order to check this, we will go to our terminal, we will type the bundle exec Rubocop and the name of the folder that we want to check. We hit enter, and it will scan the file. And this is the problem, is that it highlighted. So it correctly highlighted that we broke the single quotes style guide, that we have initial and trailing spaces inside an array, and that we use old style hashes instead of new style hashes. Now, Rubocop has something called automatic correction, so if you do -A, it will fix those problems, but we're not going to do that right now. Just, this is good enough. We see the problems, we can manually go fix them, it's good enough. And method of fixing the style guide problems number 3, which is my favorite, which I've been doing for the last 10 years, and that is to write my own scripts to fix the style guides. Don't be afraid, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Just follow me and you'll see what I'm talking about. This is an example of me creating a file to fix my own style guides. This is a bash language, so literally most of the work was done by Copilot. My job is usually just to write the description. For example, the first method is responsible for finding the incorrect order of definitions of methods. I wrote the description, I tested several ways to do it, and I found out that this method works the best. Its main objective is to find places in my code where I define class methods after instance methods, right? The second method is responsible for finding the places where I broke the style guide for single and double quotes. For example, where I should have used single quotes, but I used double quotes. The third method is responsible for finding the spaces in the beginning of an array or hash, or in the end of an array or a hash. It's all just regular expressions, nothing really complicated, anyone can do this. The fourth method is responsible for finding places where I used old style Ruby hashes. It will highlight them and will warn me that these are the places where I used old hashes and I should have used new ones. And the very last method is just launch all of the above. So we take this last method, we copy it, we go to our terminal, and we launch all these checks. And there you go. It highlighted the place where I defined the self class method test after the private methods. It highlighted the place where I made a mistake and wrote double quotes and I should have written single quotes. It highlighted the spaces, and it highlighted an old style Ruby hash. So same errors were found by my own code that I used Rubocop to find. For me, this last method is preferable because it's very flexible. I can do whatever I want in my code. I can write any methods and use them as much as I want. The second benefit is that the projects that I work on don't have an internal dependency on using Rubocop. They don't have to have the configuration files for Rubocop, which will probably be similar across many projects. And the flexibility of having my own custom code allows me to have my own scripts of how I want to later correct them. Okay, I can expand this file to correct them in a specific way that may be different from what the community, for example, supports. If you use this last method, please like this video, because then I'll know I was useful for you, and I'll know that you are a really hardcore programmer. Now, of course, if it was that simple, everyone would do it. So, of course, there are pitfalls that you have to know about. For example, you may write a script to fix the spaces inside the braces, but they may be functional. They may be inside a regular expression, for example, and running your scripts or making the fixes that they suggest you will break your code, right? And of course, you have to have 100% test coverage before you do any of these fixes, so that when you run the scripts and you fix the things that they tell you to fix, you can run the tests and see that you didn't break anything. So the best way to do these things is to have a specialist who will do these things for you, who can write tests, who can follow these style guides, who can write these scripts in your project and help you fix them. So if you think that you need help putting the things in order in your project, or you need a consultation, let me know. I will help you. Subscribe, leave a comment, and see you next time.